It takes more than great Ruby proc object skills to be a great engineer. This is Soft Skills Engineering episode 133. I'm your host, Dave Smith.
I'm your host, Jamison Dance.
Soft Skills Engineering is a weekly advice show for software developers about non-technical topics.
I feel like the shtick is getting old. I don't have anything new to say about all the new technical topics. I don't know. Proc objects.
Ruby.
They're the thing. Yeah. Should we just dive into our wonderful patrons?
Yeah.
Thank you to Matthew Wodowicz, Agile Ventures Charity, Zach Grannon, Michael Green, David Jackson, Nick Cantor, and Sean Clayton. They are all donating at the level where we thank them every single episode. Thank you as well to other people who are donating. You help support the bandwidth and the stickers and to pay for my air conditioning when my CPU fan just spins and heats up my whole house.
You just reminded me, I got a whole backlog of stickers I need to get on here. So if you've asked for stickers and haven't gotten them in the last couple months, sorry.
Yeah, but thank you. If you want to join this illustrious group, you can go to softskills.audio and click support us on Patreon.
And if you have more time than money, you could support us by coming to my house and addressing and stamping envelopes full of stickers.
Yeah, I guess we'd have to calculate an hourly wage. That's worth a few months of Patreoning.
All right, should I read our first question?
Please do.
Okay, this comes from a listener named John of Finland. John says, how can I make my team more proactive and get out of their comfort zone more? I recently started a new job as a team lead for a team of 4 developers. Each developer has their own pet thing that they keep themselves busy with. One likes to configure linters, another has a long-running project they keep to themselves, and so on. We have been tasked with a new high-priority project which involves new technology and would require everyone to pitch in. So far, though, that has only happened when I've directly asked someone to do something. I absolutely do not want to end up in a position where I have to tell people what to do. How can I make them realize that this new thing should be their top priority, even if that means going out of their comfort zone? Jamison, I didn't know you worked for John of Finland.
Why are you saying he's complaining about my love of linters?
I think so.
I think you got to go with subliminal messages. If you don't want to tell them what to do, but you still want them to absorb the information, see if you can install an editor plugin that'll flash every keystroke will just flash a single frame of a list of OKRs or the summary slide from the PowerPoint deck of, I don't know, or your Trello board or whatever.
That's so funny. You can tell them what to do without telling them what to do.
Yeah, maybe you could do it through scent somehow, and then you could just pipe smells through the office.
Oh, it's like a Pavlov response where you condition them.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, the smell of apples is database migration speed or something. Why do I suddenly feel the urge to just go and refactor some UI components? Boy, I do love cinnamon though.
Oh man.
I don't know if there's a way you can tell people what priorities are without saying here are the priorities.
You just really got to back into it, you know? Maybe you could tell them all the things that aren't priorities, and then they'll have it by process of elimination.
Linters.
Yeah. No, I guess you wouldn't want to do that because that's like telling people what not to do.
Yeah, but I mean, yeah, you could. Yeah, I think that's true. You could just do negative reinforcement. Everything they do that isn't the priority, you just kind of
look grumpy.
Yeah, just shake your head.
You pushed another linter config. Huh.
Yeah, get really passive aggressive about it. I think that's going to be the title of my management book.
Passive aggressive.
Leading with strength, really passive aggressively or something.
So you pushed more linter configs. What do you do when you're getting paid?
It feels like the core conflict here is I don't want to boss people around. I want to support some amount of autonomy, but also there are these high priorities, whether they're coming from me or it sounds like this is coming from someone else. Someone else has said this is really important. Please do it.
Yeah.
And you're trying to figure out how you don't boss people around, but still get the important thing done. Right.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting here. It's I just want my team to know what to do and do it of their own volition without me having to spell it out.
Yeah.
And sometimes you have to spell it out. I don't know.
I forgot one other solution, which is if you lean hard enough into the linter setup, you could maybe get something that'll just auto generate the project. Like tweak linter config until it builds out all of the features of the product.
It's like, oh yeah, it'd be a very specialized ESLint configuration with
then
100,000 lines.
Linter, run check style, and your check style config will generate your whole application.
No, check style will only pass when the application is finished. So like it runs tests.
That's so much worse than test-driven development. Linter-driven development.
Linter-driven test generation, test-driven development.
Ooh. All right. Why don't you tell us the right stuff?
Well, I think a lot of leaders are afraid of coming across as the iron-fisted dictator, and they just really want their team to know what they know, have the priorities they have, and focus on those priorities and get it done without them having to drop the hammer, you know?
Yeah. I feel this conflict all the time where I'm torn between being accountable for the team's output and not wanting to dictate to them exactly like, you type this thing, you drop that and work on this thing.
Yeah. So what do you do? Like, how do you come across as a non-dictator but still actually get the business objectives met?
I feel like I think the team is probably looking for priority from you. I mean, how are they going to know what to work on? So I think part of it for me was realizing like, it's not just, big bad Jamison telling everybody what to do. It's like giving direction. And a lot of software developers love to solve problems, but I don't know, not all of them love like finding the right problem to solve. That's kind of like a different, more product focused skill set. So I don't think it's a bad thing at all to say like, my role as team lead is to clearly communicate priorities. I don't think it's not even like what you have to do to get it done. I think it makes the team work better in general. It's not like a purely negative thing. So some of it was just a mindset shift for me.
A mind shift.
Yeah, a set mind. I feel like the other thing was figuring out a way to balance these things where there can still be room for bottom-up developer ideas, and they're the ones that are closest to the code and the day-to-day technical feeling of working on stuff, so they know the most about like tech debt issues, or I don't know, things that don't directly map as easily to business objectives. So I feel like you kind of have to negotiate both of those at the same time and say like, we have this big important project to work on, help me prioritize, help me be aware of all the other issues so I can work to prioritize them with this big important project.
Yeah.
If it really is like a crunch time or something though, you probably owe it to them to say like, we just have to pause on that for a little bit for these super important business reasons. But I guess the point of what I'm saying is you can make them feel heard and make them feel empowered to participate still beyond just being like assembly line workers pulling tickets off the queue and cranking them out to build this product. You can have them give input into the priorities while also setting clear priorities. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah. I really like what you just said. All those things. Really.
Why, thank you.
Yeah. I had another thing I was going to say too, and now I have forgotten. Oh, yeah. Okay. So I was going to add that even the most extreme diehard linter aficionado knows that these kinds of projects are really a means to an end, and they are not their own reward. If I'm adding a linter to a project, I'm doing it presumably so that it's easier to extend, enhance, change, bug fix in that project, right? I don't just do a linter so that I can have this. Well, maybe I was going to say maybe I don't just do it for the satisfaction of sleeping well at night, knowing that my code is tidy, but you do it.
I think there is some of that, honestly.
Oh, crap.
I think the other thing about linters is it gives you a giant long list of errors that you can methodically and like predictably go shrink.
Yeah.
It's like fake work that feels really productive.
Yeah, like there's a nice artifact that signals completion. And I've been in this trap. Not necessarily a trap, but 2 jobs ago I worked at a company that I showed up and they had like 8,000 linter errors when I started, and I remember I just took a couple days and I just hammered through them so that we could get them to 0. Because once you're at 0, now the team can move a little bit more confidently And
yeah, going from 0 back to 10 back to 0 is much different from staring at 8,000 being like, well, 8,010?
Yeah, exactly.
It's probably fine.
Exactly. And then you can have rules, right, that say you can't check in code if you introduce any new linter errors, right? So anyway, I really did that. And frankly, I think it benefited us quite a bit. But the only benefit that it gives is the ability to develop the product for the business and your customers. It's not about the linting itself. And if it is about the linting itself, that's a trap. So your team, I think, might be stuck in a little bit of a trap here, where they have put the cart before the horse and they think that these things are the priority. And to me, that says that you haven't done what Jamison suggested, which is clearly communicate what the business priorities are and why they're important in such a way that the team can get behind them.
Yeah, I think if you couch it as like, here are the priorities, you have your pet project, help me see how that contributes to the priorities.
Mm-hmm.
Like like you said, if it is helping us develop faster or reduce our bug count or like build cleaner UIs, or I don't know, there's got to be some benefit.
Yeah,
and you have to figure out some way to show that instead of just saying like, but I like linting.
Those are like famously hard to quantify though, right? It's like if we have a functioning linting system, maybe we can shave 20% off of our development time. It's like, how will you ever quantify that? And so I think sometimes it just comes down to a matter of trust on the manager or team lead's part to say, I will carve out X% of your time to be able to work on these things because I feel like that probably strikes a good balance of mostly of getting the team velocity up, but also of giving you something to really dig into that you're passionate about.
Yeah.
Although when I said that last thing, I suddenly felt bad. Like, is your team's work really all about making the team members feel good about their work, or is it about accomplishing a business objective on behalf of your customers? I don't know. I've got a meta answer to that question, which is, if you ignore your team's satisfaction, then eventually they'll leave, and then you can no longer meet your business objectives. So
yeah, I mean, that kind of makes it sound like you're just throwing them a bone, though. Like, okay, do this other thing so that you'll be happy doing like the important work that you don't like as much. And that might be true sometime, but ideally it would all work towards that shared priority.
Yeah. And
I think it's fair to expect that sometimes people might disagree with the priority and say, so linting is a pretty interesting example because it's like very technical, very specific. And like you said, Dave, it's kind of abstract how to quantify that into some business metric or goal. But say there's, John also mentioned someone else's pet project. And maybe that's like a user-facing project. It's just like unclear what the value is and how that fits in.
Yeah.
I literally can't remember what I was going to say next.
That's happened to both of us today.
I think I was going to say that it's easier. Yeah. Okay. So they might have different opinions about products priority or something and say like, no, the thing I made, that's super important. And how do you resolve that when it's not just like, but I like linting? It's like, this project that I am working on, I believe is important. So I would like to keep working on it.
But see, that's a debate that needs to be had. There should not be these hidden priorities that get decided because some engineer in isolation thought it would be a good idea. This is a business transaction. Transaction's not the right word. This is an investment, and your work is an investment in future business goals. And so that should be out in the open and should be reconciled against all the other goals, I think.
Yeah. How do they get from the position they're in where they don't want to tell anyone what to do to a position where work is more aligned around priorities and values? Because it sounds like it might be kind of Wild Westy right now, where maybe this wasn't this wasn't part of how they worked before or something.
Yeah, it sounds like maybe it's too bottom up and not enough top down.
Yeah. Or, I mean, I don't even know if top down versus bottom up is the right distinction, but there's clearly disagreement about what people should be working on and how much. I don't know. Alignment, is that a vague businessy word that describes what is missing here? If it comes from below and people are all agreed, that still seems fine. But either way, it seems like that's missing, where everyone's kind of pulling in different directions.
Yeah, fair point.
So what do? Do they just come in and crack down and say, like, that linting thing you like? Stop it.
Stop.
It's bad. Do this other thing instead.
I think what needs to happen here is you need a mechanism that makes it visible to the team how they are contributing to the business goal. Like, there's a clear business goal here. It says, John says it's high priority. How does the team know whether or not they're contributing to that? Because some of these projects might contribute indirectly, but without the visibility to see how they're their code contributions or linter configs or side projects actually contributed to that goal, they won't know if they're actually working on the right things. And then I think as a team leader, you have to constantly reinforce and communicate what the progress is toward that goal. And it sounds like those mechanisms are just completely lacking in this team.
Yeah. Have you heard about OKRs, objectives and key results?
I've heard of them, but I've never worked at a company that has them.
We've been talking about them a little bit on my team recently, and it seems like it's kind of a mechanism to solve this problem where each level kind of aligns around what objectives are important and then bubbles them up and down between those two levels. And one of the points is they should be measurable in some way. So it wouldn't just be like launch this new project. It's like, I don't know, save customers X amount of money or something like that.
Yeah.
But there's some goal that you are measuring some kind of numbers or metrics against. And then it's pretty easy to see, like, did the number go up or down because of the work that you did? I still feel a little bit confused about how directly everything that someone does can be mapped to a number. But I think the broad point of like, you should be able to tell if you're progressing or not is kind of served by that framework.
Yeah, I totally agree. And my company does that as well, but we don't call them OKRs. We just call them goals. But
sure,
there's a lot of constraints on what makes a goal. And what I found is that rather than mapping each individual task to the goal, you report a team's progress on meeting the goal, say on a weekly basis, and then you'll detect if the entire team goes off track, or if a sizable segment of the team starts working on things that don't contribute to the goal, because the goal will stop moving, or the status will stop moving. And so I think at the team level, that's about the right unit for tracking these things.
Yeah.
You sound reluctant.
Well, I don't know. I think I have a lot to learn about OKRs because I still feel like they operate in this world where every action has a number attached to it. And I don't think that describes the world very much.
Yeah. Yeah. I've never seen those dots connected at that fine grained of a level.
So they kind of came from a few different places, but they came to prominence out of Google, and supposedly they do a pretty good job of that at Google, of like, you have to measure first before you can even start on the work.
I see. Like, get a baseline before you start?
Yeah. I think saying like, well, at Google we did this is kind of a cop-out though, because it's a unique company in a unique situation. And
yeah, I
don't know. I've talked myself back down to apathy and uncertainty. What do they actually do? I think one thing you can do is say, like, we need to come to some agreement on what our team's priorities are.
Yeah.
And this project is super high priority, and we should be working towards it. And work that is not towards that needs to be weighted accordingly.
Absolutely.
If you're not working on this, you should have a compelling justification for why.
Yeah, for sure. And I think as a team lead, it's your job to help your team understand why this priority is what it is. So if sometimes you don't understand why, it was just handed down to you, but it behooves you to find out why, and then share that.
That's a great point.
With your team in such a way that they can actually rally behind it. And
it's a much different story to say, like, we're doing this thing to deliver this amount of value for these reasons, versus like some VP said, do this or you're in trouble.
Yeah.
Or no answer at all, because that's kind of what people infer of like, okay,
yeah,
I guess it's just rolling downhill to you.
Yeah. Do this. And if you don't, well, you can figure out what'll happen.
Yeah. Well, did we answer the question?
Probably not.
All right. I'm going to go back to tweaking my linter setup.
All right.
Good luck.
All right.
Okay. I'm going to read our next question.
I hope you will.
It is from an anonymous listener, and they gave us a TLDR. Thank you. I appreciate that. My role and product are moving to a different country. I don't want to relocate. Here's all the rest of the details. I have to stick around for at least another 3 to 4 months to get my redundancy package. In some ways, this is great, as I'm pretty unprepared for interviewing right now. On the other hand, this is terrible, because I'm pretty unprepared for interviewing right now. How do I keep morale up for me personally and the wider team during this period?
Oh, you have 3 months to fret until the fat check comes your way.
It says at least another 3 to 4 months, though. So that sounds even worse.
Sounds like you don't have a date.
Yeah, that seems weird.
Huh. To get my redundancy package. Wait, does this mean that you have to just keep working at the same company for the next 3 to 4 months plus? And then they'll give you a check?
That's how I interpret it.
And then they'll fire you.
That sometime, 3 to 4 months from now, their job is being eliminated and they'll get some severance.
Well, that's interesting, because typically it's like you get severance because you're being fired without any notice now. And so we're paying you to help bridge you to your next job. Whereas here, it's like you get the best of both worlds. You have 3 to 4 months to brush up on your interview skills, find another job, and we're going to give you a big check on your way out.
I feel like I've seen this at some places where they'll offer like layoff packages or whatever.
Sure, but usually it's like leave tomorrow.
I don't know.
I've seen the
lot.
opposite of this. I've seen retention packages where they say, if you stay at least X amount of time, we'll pay you a bonus, like after an acquisition or something. But I don't think I've seen where you have to stay a certain amount of time, and we are going to lay you off, and we are going to give you a big check on your way out the door. That's kind of nice.
It does make me wonder, like, what the business's motivation is for telling you sometime in the next 3 to infinity months, your job will be gone. Like, what are they hoping? Maybe they're inferring it from news announcements or something, but it just seems like, what would you expect besides everyone would just stop working?
Yeah.
And you got to kick it into the finish line before you don't work here anymore. I don't know.
Yeah, if I were this company, I would probably not advertise that was the plan.
I feel like that's how it usually goes. It's usually a surprise because they want to squeeze more work
because
out.
They don't want this exact situation of people's morale going into the toilet.
Yeah.
Well, nevertheless, this is the situation you're in, and we have answers.
Boy, do we ever. How do I keep your morale up? It sounds like you don't have to. Like, what are they going to do? Lay you
You're
off?
already redundant.
I don't know. This just feels really weird to me. I feel like some part of me would kind of just like keep working because that's the deal. But I feel like I would also not feel the same pressures.
Yeah.
Around performance and output and like here's what you could do. You could use this as an opportunity to try and shake things up, right? If there are unspoken truths that you can't utter because you might offend someone higher up, right? Now's the time to say like, hey, your stupid idea is stupid. to the like VP of engineering or whatever.
But you don't want to, the thing is, you can't quite do that because you don't want to jeopardize getting fired before your time is up and maybe miss out on your redundancy check.
Yeah, I don't know. This is really weird. I feel like if you get fired, there's often some kind of check though.
So you're saying maybe you could get the check today instead of waiting 3 months by doing something really stupid.
I'm not saying try and get fired. I'm just saying like the long-term consequences are gone basically because you're going to be gone anyways. So what would you do if there was nothing stopping you? If you weren't worried about like appeasing someone or not shaking things up or like playing, I'm not saying do illegal or unethical things. I'm saying there are just cultural norms or like ways things work because no one has the energy to like push stuff through, or I don't know.
Things you were afraid to do before.
Yeah. Things you were afraid to do before. You can try those now.
All right. Like the really audacious, wild things that you don't think will work, but could be really cool.
I mean, and they can't be too audacious because you only have 3 months. So it can't be like start this giant new project, but just like, I don't know what specifics to give here. I honestly can't think of anything that isn't like be selfish about this time. Like time to polish up your tech skills and use things you're interested in playing with. And like, yeah, I don't know. This is a really weird situation to me.
I mean, along those lines, my idea was go buy a copy of Cracking the Coding Interview 6th edition, 150 programming problems that you might see in an interview. Lock yourself in a conference room with a whiteboard and a marker and get to work.
Put them all in your product.
I've always wanted to do topological sorting here.
Detecting cycles in a linked list is now a core feature. Yeah, like this just seems so bizarre. Like, so I feel like some people will just be intrinsically motivated to do good work, to try and deliver stuff, and some people will be really demotivated by this. And I don't think I can make a value judgment and say like, this company has told you your job is going to be gone. You owe it to them to really just like up your productivity in this time. Like if you want to, then sure, just keep working. If you're feeling really bummed out, then it's kind of some time to explore and play.
Sounds fun. Either way.
Yeah.
I do think that for me personally, it would help if I could latch on to some tasks that could realistically be delivered in that time period and give me something to distract myself from the fact that I will be leaving and focus instead on delivering something by a deadline. And I think that would take my mind off of the drudgery of just passing the days until that fateful moment when your redundancy paycheck comes.
I'm trying to think about tasks that people who are leaving, or me as I've been leaving, have left half done. And I feel like they just never, it's pretty common that they just get dropped. Like, half of the work done and then someone leaving is often the same as none of the work done. So I think that's good advice if you want to actually accomplish stuff, that you gotta shrink it down.
Yeah, scope it down. Maybe focus on documentation that you've been putting off for the last 5 years.
Yeah.
I mean, that is one thing you could focus on, is a successful transition. Now, your job and your product are moving to a different country, which means they're not going to have access to you. Quite possibly might be in a distant time zone, might speak another language. And so maybe now would be a good time to create some great documentation that you wish you had when you started on the team.
Yeah, that's a fair point. Making the handover easier. That's kind of like an empathy thing for the other people. That's and that might be a more realistic motivation than like, make sure you squeeze the last drops of blood out of yourself for this company.
Yeah.
Before they cast you aside.
I can tell you what not to do, though.
Up.
I have a couple of ideas of things you definitely don't want to do that will make you miserable. The
Okay.
first one is, don't count the number of days every day until your severance day comes.
Well, they can't, because they don't know how many days there are. So that's fine.
The other one is, don't constantly recalculate the taxes that will come out of your severance package, trying to estimate what the net amount will be.
Why? Okay. Why would you have to recalculate?
Because
them?
you forgot.
Just to like see if it changed.
Yeah, you're like, well, I didn't write it down. Now I have to recalculate it.
Okay. Any other things to avoid?
I would try to figure out what the date's going to be. And then I would try to figure out what kinds of things could jeopardize you from getting that final package, and avoid all those things.
Yeah.
I don't know what they would be.
I think it's a great time to start looking for a new job, too. I mean, they've told you you aren't going to work there anymore, so.
You have time on your side, which means you can afford to be choosy, and you can interview with lots of companies knowing that you have plenty of time before you need to accept an offer.
Yeah, you can cast a pretty wide net. That's a good point.
Now, I think if you interview today and you happen to get a fantastic offer from a company you like, they might not be willing to let you string them along for 4 months before you start. So, you might want to interview at companies that you are less likely to want to work at first, and then after a month or two, you've got all your practice under your belt, then go for the companies you really want to work for.
I mean, you could just leave, too, if you get another offer.
You could, but then you might miss out on that redundancy package, whatever that is.
Yeah. So this could be an opportunity to try and negotiate some financial incentives to do that, too.
Oh, yeah.
You could ask for a signing bonus.
Mm-hmm.
That's like a reasonably normal thing in some parts of the industry. And often it's also used to justify giving up things at your previous company. So if you're giving up a severance package, sometimes it's stock too, but like if it's a severance package you're giving up, you could just say like, I need this to leave right away, or I could come in 3 to infinity months. So if you want me here sooner, then you can do this to make it.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I mean, I think what you would say there is, I'm going to be giving up X amount of money by coming now. So can you help me cover some of that?
Yeah, this is just so alien to me because I always quit when I feel bummed out. So the idea that someone would say like, in 3 months, you're going to not have a job anymore, stick around.
You'd be bummed out immediately.
Make yourself useful until then. I feel like I'd be like, well, I'm going to see how long I can not go into work then.
Push the limits of the vacation policy.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think I would do that. But I think more likely is I would just leave. It would depend on the financial circumstances, I guess, too. And those are very different for everybody. So,
well, good luck.
Yeah, good luck. I hope things work out well. I hope you get your severance and you end up at a great place. And life is just all incredible for you for the rest of it.
For the next 3 to infinity months of your life.
Yep. All right. What should people do if they want their own questions
answered? Go to softskills.audio and click Ask a Question. You just fill out a simple form there. Thanks so much to everyone who has asked questions. We just can't possibly get to all of them, but so many of you have, and you keep the show going. We really appreciate you. How can people support the show, Jamison?
There are a couple ways. You can tell people about it, tweet about it. I don't know. Important podcasts say go review us on iTunes, so we'll copy them. You could do that. You can go to our website, softskills.audio, and click support us on Patreon if you would like to contribute financially. You can also leave comments about the episodes on that website, and we check them and read them, and often they're much smarter than the things we say. So
that's true.
if you want the goods. Wait, isn't it? That happens on the radio, right? Like you hear someone saying something, you're like, what are they talking about? They don't know anything. This is like the internet version of that, where people are like, they said, what? And then give us kind but smart things from their experience.
There have been a lot of good ones where I'm like, oh, yeah, of course. Should have said that.
Yeah. Nobody's mean. I should be clear. No one's yelling at us. But it's nice to hear other people's experience about similar topics or issues. And I think with that, we'll just catch you next week. See ya.